Guys, how is everybody doing? I know, I'm late. Bad Boys Ride or Die is already in the theater. Huge success at the box office, though. And I'm late talking about the third one, Bad Boys for Life. Why is it called For Life when it's the third one? Shouldn't the fourth one been like Bad Boys for Life? I'll stop. So before I even talk about my honest opinion about Bad Boys for Life, I want to talk about the history for this movie. Back when this movie was coming out in January of 2020, huge red flag already when this movie was coming out. I honestly had no expectations for it because I loved the first two movies growing up. Those were two action movies that I loved watching a lot when they were on Netflix before I bought them. Yeah, remember when Netflix used to be cool? Good times. And when I heard about a third movie coming out, I really didn't have any expectations. The second one came out in 2003, a new one coming out like 16 years, 17 years later. That's a huge red flag. And I already knew about January, which was dump month about movies. Like, when you put a movie out in January, that's not a good sign, especially for horror movies. So I really had no interest in the movie, so I didn't even go and see it in the theater. And it wasn't until I heard about word of mouth about this movie, this was when I was still watching YouTube before I do what I do now. I was watching YouTube, I saw people talk about the movie and how they thought it was a huge surprise. So I wait for it to come out on Blu-ray. So I bought the three film collection with all three of them because I didn't own the other two at the time. And I watched the film finally, and I gotta tell you, I was really surprised by the movie. I was in utter shock how much I loved Bad Boys for Life. And at that time, I was watching. I'm like, okay, it's good, but it's not the best of the franchise. But excuse me, but about 2 or 3 years ago, I decided to binge the Bad Boys franchise. I was in a Bad Boys mood, so I decided to binge all of them. So I watched the first two, and I'm like, okay, Bad Boys for Life. This is my second watch of the movie. Let's see how it is. But the second watch when I saw the movie, I was like, is this the best Bad Boys movie? Is I really didn't know. So years later, I rewatch it again for this review, and god damn it, I still think it's the best of the franchise. But instead of stalling and saying why I love the movie, let's talk about the positives of Bad Boys for Life. And not my problem, my main positive of Bad Boys for Life is how risky this movie is. Not in like taking chances and doing something, but how many risks there are in this movie to where Mike and Marcus actually feel like they can die in this movie. Now, they kind of play with it a little bit in the first two movies to where they don't really take anything seriously to where they know they can't die, or like the recent Bad Boys movie to where Marcus is like kind of fucking around the whole time and like saying that he can't die and it's not his time. But in this movie, it really feels that they actually can die. Fuck, man, Captain Howard dies in this movie. That's how risky it is. It's willing to kill off older characters and willing trying to kill Mike and Marcus and like legit trying to make you feel that they can die in this movie, that they're about to die. Like Mike in just the beginning of the movie, like the first 25, not 25, like 15, 20 minutes of the movie, he gets shot and he's in the hospital and people are crying and praying to God, hoping that he's okay. Like us as an audience, like when I first watched this, I was like, is Mike gonna die in this movie? Like, is he gonna be in like critical condition? Like, what's going on? Like, that's how many risks there are in this movie to where it, the beginning of the movie just makes you think that Mike is about to die. Like bulletproof Mike, as they called him throughout throughout the other two movies, and like how like he's a guy that won't die and refuses to get shot. Like, and then he gets shot, and you're like, did they just shoot Mike? Did they just actually shoot him? Like, is there risk in this movie? And then when Captain Howard dies, like, it's an emotional death. Like, you didn't expect that. Like, you didn't expect one of the best characters from the other two movies to die in the new one. Like, you don't expect that. I didn't expect that. Did any of us? Did really any of us expect that when Bad Boys for Life came out? I did when I first watched it. This movie does a great job of showing you that there are risks in this franchise, and this movie is not afraid to kill off a very important characters from the franchise. Something that continues into this movie years later, after the huge time gap between the second one and this one, is Martin Lawrence's and Will Smith's chemistry. This guy's chemistry is still great. It was great in the other two, and it continues to be great in this movie. To where there's a huge, like I said, there's a huge time gap between the second one and this movie to where you were like, well, how's that going to work? Are they going to have the same chemistry? Are they going to have to build that through? But no, you don't feel like they miss a beat because when you're watching this movie, like it doesn't feel like their chemistry fell off. It doesn't feel like their chemistry just vanished. Like it's still there. Like when you watch this movie, you like how good their chemistry is. It honestly feels throughout the years after Bad Boys 2 that Will Smith and Martin Lawrence still like hung out together. Like these two act like they went to the bar like every Saturday night to hang out, or went to the movies together, or went to dinner with their families. Like these guys' chemistry is still great to where it just doesn't miss, and it doesn't feel like it's gone, to where it's still there years later, 17 years later, it's still there, and even in the new one, still there. These guys' chemistry continues out throughout this entire franchise, and I'm so glad that it didn't fall off in this new one, oldest new one. Something that I was really worried about this movie when I first watched the movie a few years ago is that is the comedy even gonna be any good anymore? Like, you got like these new writers and you got this new team coming in. Like, is the chemistry, not the chemistry, the comedy gonna be any good? I would probably debate it's at its best because this movie is hilarious to where one thing I am glad about the comedy that it doesn't go too far in is with the old people jokes to where they're there and it's poking fun at it, but they don't cross the line to where they do too much. They only do it here and there with them, and it's mostly with Marcus when he's retired and staying home and doing all the old people things, I guess, to where he's trying to relax, but he's breaking things, and his wife's telling him that he needs to get the hell out of the house. Like, that's a pretty funny scene. And I like the part, this part, I don't know why this killed me, but when the guy gets thrown off the roof and lands on Marcus's wife's, van, and fucking Mike, he goes, that better be a piano. And he turns around, it's the guy that they were looking for, and he's just dead on the car. Like,
That better be a safe or a piano.
It's a messed up joke, but it's pretty funny because it's about Will Smith saying that better be piano. Like that's a funny part. Like in the comedy, like in the part where Mike gets on the bike and he's driving and fucking Marcus is sitting in the little car next to it where the was it a husky? Where was it a husky? I can't remember. Where like the husky was sitting for one of the bad guys, and he's sitting there, and he has to shoot the little big gun. Like that's a funny part in the movie, to where he has to sit in the little car where Mike is on the actual bike. That's a great sequence in this movie. So yeah, and again with the chemistry of Will Smith, Martin Lawrence, those guys are just comedy gold with each other, making fun of each other. Like the part where they go to apartment, talk about good men, like how they're supposed to be good men now.
Who in the hell want to sing that song? Good man, what you gonna do?
Like that's like that scene alone, like that felt like it was ad libbed. I'm gonna be honest, like that entire part of the movie felt ad libbed. So Will and Mart's chemistry carries on into the comedy. They're still comedic gold, and they're still funny as hell together on screen. This movie's comedy is probably at its best of the entire franchise, if not a close second with the first one. And I would have bet money that this would not be one of my positives, but the story. Now, the other two Bad Boys movies, they don't really have stories. They're very simple stories about just a simple drug bust like movie to where they're trying to find this guy that took all these drugs, and in the second one, they're trying to bring down this drug overlord, the Scarface like villain in the second movie. But the story in this movie is great to where it's basically Mike's movie. I'll talk about that later, but it's Mike's story in a way to where in the beginning of the movie he gets shot by someone, but he doesn't know. But months later, 6 months later, I believe is after he gets shot. 6 months later, after he gets shot, he wants to find the person that shot him. He wants to get back onto this case. He wants to find out who this person is assassinating all these people that is attached to this one one crime, what's the word I'm looking for? This one case that took place years before Mike Lowrey and Marcus became partners. Like they go, this is a case that happened years ago, decades ago, and all of a sudden this assassin comes along and starts killing these people that were all involved with this case and got this guy's father killed, apparently. And so Mike is looking for this assassin that tried to kill him and ended up killing a bunch of people that he knew. So he's slowly tracking them down, and Marcus decides to jump on and help him after Captain Howard's death. The story in this movie is great. Again, it's mostly a Mike story, but I'm okay with that. But yet, the story of this movie is something I didn't expect to love about the movie. It's not something that I walked in thinking would be great about the movie. Because when you think of a Bad Boys movie, you don't think of, ooh, what's the story going to be? You think of, is the comedy between Will and Martin going to be good? And is the action going to be badass? Those are the two things we look for when we go to a Bad Boys movie. But a story, however, is not what we usually look for. But these new directors, they basically put on a great story and they gave it to us and be like, well, what do you think about this? And we all said we all fucking love it. And what, like I talked about, the action in this movie, that's what we usually go for a Bad Boys movie. And the action in this movie is incredible. It is amazing. It still doesn't miss the franchise and just shows that the action throughout all four of these movies are fantastic. They're all great. So, if you're a Bad Boys fan and you love the action of the franchise, you're gonna love it in this movie because the sequence to where they go into the warehouse and Mike needs to capture this guy alive and that whole warehouse shootout, or like when they're in the bike again and they're kind of going on the highway and they're shooting at the helicopter, or when the final sequence of the movie when they're like the big like church or whatever, or like this big building in Mexico. That sequence is great. Enough said. Action in Bad Boys movie, I approve. And another thing I would have bet money that I would not have liked about the movie is the ammo team. When I saw trailers for this movie when the movie was coming out back in 2020, or like 2019 was when they were actually showing trailers, or when they released it. When did that trailer even come out? But it was like 2019 when I saw the trailer. And I saw the trailer and I saw the ammo team and I saw these new young characters. And the entire time I was just like, well, they're gonna ruin the movie, aren't they? They're gonna make Mike and Marcus look like fucking dumbasses and jokes. They kinda do, but they don't at the same time, to where they kind of acknowledge the fact that they're trying to do that. They kind of make a history between Mike and one of the ammo team members, to where they kind of play at jokes about it, to where they have all the technology to know like where these bullet what this bullet is or how to capture someone. But Mike and Marcus are the old school type, to where they like to interrogate people instead. They like to interview people. God, I almost threw up for some reason. But like they Mike and Marcus are the like old school light costs, and then you get the ammo team that are like the new school guys with all the technology that just use technology for everything, and Mike and Marcus kind of look like idiots to them. It's not even that. It's just that they're all likable characters, and they're all characters that you really enjoy, and I'm glad to see that they came back for the new one too. Because I loved that. I really loved the new Ammo team. I thought they were all really great in this movie. They were a lot of fun, and I thought that none of them were like really annoying characters, and none of them like I felt you need to try to get to know too well. But I don't know. But the new characters in this movie, the with the Ammo team, is great, and I thought they were really entertaining. However, moving on to my mixed aspects, the one thing that I'm really mixed about is how this movie mostly focuses on Mike. This is Mike's story. Like I talked about with the story earlier in my positives, which is still a great thing about the movie, but the whole thing about just focusing on Mike. I don't know how I felt about that. I don't even think Marcus gets too much screen time. I think maybe he only gets like a solid 50 minutes of this movie at least, which is still a good amount of screen time in the movie, but it felt more like it was just more focused on Mike. And it I won't spoil the movie for you if you haven't seen it, but if you're a Bad Boys fan, you probably have seen it. But if you're not a Bad Boys fan and you haven't seen it, I won't spoil it for you. But this movie tries to give you origins on Mike with the villain of this movie, and they're talking about how he was created in a way, how he became the Mike Lowrey that we all know. I felt that didn't need to be there. We didn't need to know an origin of how Mike Lowrey became Mike Lowrey, because he's born like that. The fuck else do you want from me, man? Like, I don't want to spoil it, but we didn't really need to know some of his origins because it doesn't need to be there. But again, them just focusing on Mike, eh, All in all, guys, Bad Boys for Life. It might be my favorite Bad Boys movie. I don't know. I'm gonna do my ranking hopefully tomorrow if time will let me. If it's late, don't yell at me. But I still need to think about it because I'm trying to tell myself that it's not the best, but Bad Boys for Life might. It actually might because Bad Boys for Life is a great new installment of this franchise. It's a great new creative reboot in a way. I loved this Bad Boys movie. It's how I believe you should do it. I believe the action is great, the comedy is great. Will's and Martin's chemistry is still fantastic. If you love the other two, I believe you're gonna love this movie even more because Bad Boys for Life is fucking awesome. What do you guys think of Bad Boys for Life? Have you seen it? What do you think about it? Do you like this movie? Do you not like this movie? Do you think this is the best of the franchise or the worst of the franchise? Let me know in the comments below and we shall talk about it. If you like this video, like it. If you love to subscribe, hit the bell notification so you will get notified for all my latest videos. And hopefully my ranking of all Bad Boys movies ranked from worst to best tomorrow if time will allow me to do it. Thank you all so much for watching and of course, I'll see you all next time.